Hello, 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 and welcome to our nursing news you can use at 5. I'm Tina Baxter. I'm your host. Thank you for tuning in. For those of you that are watching us on YouTube, those that are watching on our Facebook pages, Baxter Professional Services and the Nurse Shark Academy, welcome to today's show for October the 11th, 2023. And I want to start off with our affirmations for today. Our affirmation inspirational quote: there is nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. True nobility is being superior to your former self. There is nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. True nobility is being superior to your former self. This is from Ernest Hemingway. Only those who will risk going too far can possibly find out how far one can go. Only those who risk going too far can possibly find out how far one can go. T.S. Eliot. When you have confidence, you can have a lot of fun. And when you have fun, you can do amazing things. When you have confidence, you can do a lot of fun. You can have a lot of fun. And when you have fun, you can do amazing things. Joe Namath. These are our inspirational quotes from the Inspirational Daily Calendar by Lauren Dratch. So I want to say, hey, today's been a great day. Very busy day. Started this morning, and if you missed it, you can look on my Facebook page, my personal page, if you're a friend, Facebook friends with me. We started off with the diversity breakfast with the Anderson Madison County Black Chamber of Commerce. Great speakers, great time. And then we moved on to do a variety of different things, met with a couple of people today, and actually have a possible new business opportunity ahead of me. And then now I'm here with you, lovely people, after doing a training this afternoon, which is why we're just a few minutes late because I left my training. So I want to say it's been a great day. How has your day been? Feel free to chime in. It's beautiful. The sun is shining. It's a wonderful October day. Looking forward to all the wonderful things that are happening in our community. Also on Friday is the President's Reception for the Anderson Madison County Black Chamber of Commerce. And then Saturday is the Women's Conference. So if you haven't had a chance to register, go over to Eventbrite and register for the event for the Women's Conference. And I know I'm doing announcements early, but I wanted to make sure I get these community announcements in for everyone. And then on Sunday evening, there's still time to get a ticket to come to the Black Chamber annual banquet. However, you must have a ticket, and seating is limited. And so we sell out every year, but there's a few tickets that are left. So if you're needing a ticket, let me know. I still have a couple tickets left. But yeah, so I'm just encouraging people to let you know what's happening out in our Anderson local community. So let's go ahead and get into the news because there's a lot. Oh, there's a lot that's happening with the news today. And so it's kind of interesting, all the different things that are happening in our community. And first off, I do want to say my condolences and thoughts and prayers with the people in Israel and the Palestinians. A horrible situation with the war that's going on, and also we'll continue to pray for the war that's going on in Ukraine. So hoping that there'll be peace in both situations. All right. So let's get into it. Let's start with this first story. This is coming from Skilled Nursing News. And we've been covering the news about the new mandates from the feds for the staffing mandate that's coming up. And so now, in looking at this, they're discovering that licensed practical nurses or licensed vocational nurses, depending on where you are in the country, kind of were excluded in the whole staffing mandate. So this is kind of interesting. So let's get into that. So it says the skilled nursing industry is at a crossroads as it grapples with the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, proposed federal staffing mandate. A significant point of contention in the proposal is the exclusion of licensed practical nurses, which has ignited concerns and garnered strong reactions from industry leaders. It says Mark Parkinson's quoted saying, "What's keeping me up right now is the policy nightmare." He happens to be the CEO and president of the American Healthcare Association National Center for Assisted Living, and said at the organization's annual convention and expo in Denver. He says the proposed staffing rule is an overreaction, a poor reaction to a horrible crisis that we all experienced. And so the questions and concerns are with the possible exclusion of LPNs in the staffing ratio mix. So David Grabowski, a professor of healthcare policy at Harvard, warned that if the proposed rule becomes final, the LPN role in many nursing homes may disappear. The proposed mandate calls for Medicare and Medicaid certified nursing homes to provide a minimum of 0.55 hours of care from a registered nurse per resident per day and 2.45 hours of care from a nurse aide per resident per day, with non-rural nursing homes having 3 years and rural nursing homes having 5 years to meet the standards. As facilities try to meet the minimum RN requirements and staff the remaining positions with CNAs, the shift could lead to a significant decline in licensed practical nurse staffing in nursing homes. And so that is where some of those issues are coming up. And having looked at that mandate, I missed that. I was like, okay, nursing. And I guess a lot of people miss that. So in theory, this is what it's saying. Nursing homes could meet the 0.55 RN threshold and then staff the remaining positions with CNAs, he said. Grabowski acknowledged that while the CMS Commission report from ABT Associates did not show an association between LPNs and quality of care, other research has found that LPNs are essential for delivering high-quality care. He emphasized the importance of having sufficient numbers of RNs, LPNs, and CNAs to provide high-quality nursing home care. Moreover, some states are already implementing their own staffing mandates that include LPNs, and these might conflict with those proposed in the federal staffing mandate. So according to Grabowski, this proposed rule is going to be a huge challenge for states with mandates that allow the uses of LPNs. For example, he noted that Massachusetts has a state staffing mandate of 3.58 hours per resident day, which is far above the new proposed federal rule of 3 hours per resident day. However, Massachusetts rule allows the use of LPNs. As a result, in spite of the higher overall standard, only 13% of Massachusetts nursing homes are currently in compliance with the proposed federal rule of 0.055 RN and 2.45 CNA hours per resident day. So you can see that's a problem. And it says the exclusion of LPNs from the CMS proposal not only has the potential to create an operational morass for providers, but it's hitting operators in a deeply personal way. That makes the LPN exclusion not just a policy matter up for debate, but a hot-button issue that threatens morale and could deepen distrust between providers and regulators. According to Diversicare, it says, this is near and dear to my heart because my mom was a nurse in a nursing home. The rule completely ignores our LPN team members, and everyone that's in the business knows how crucial a role they play every day, which is very true. And so they actually see this as disrespectful and a slap in the face to licensed practical nurses. So I want to see what you have to think about it. So let's talk about it. Let me know. But I thought that was an interesting article, and it's something I hadn't thought of or caught. Because I guess I just assumed that LPNs were in there, but apparently they are not. All right, so let's get on to our next story. This is coming from KIRO7, and this is out of Seattle, and nurses are now picketing. So it says Virginia Mason nurses picketed outside the Seattle hospital on Tuesday to demand better staffing and protection against workplace violence. The picket by hundreds of nurses in the Washington State Nurses Association comes after 15 bargaining sessions. According to the union, one nurse was stabbed in the face with a butter knife and another was nearly hit in the head with a claw hammer. Nurses say they've approached management with proposals for better security, which would help retain nurses and attract new ones, but they are being ignored. According to Kimberly Travis Carter, an emergency room department nurse at Virginia Mason, I've never felt more unsafe. A lot of patients come in with weapons on them, homemade weapons. We've had instances where we've had guns in our ER. As for staffing, they say their workload is rising because the hospital has been losing nurses and cutting traveling nurses' contracts. Critical care nurse Michael Salters was on the picket line Tuesday morning. He said patient care is at risk when some wings of the hospital are at times short 5, 10, or as many as 12 nurses. He goes on to say more staffing, feeling unsafe, isn't just a risk of someone being around you, it's not having enough nurses to take care of the patients we have. From July to August this year, the net number of registered nurses dropped by 60. Wow, okay. And so, again, this is an interesting case. We'll continue to follow that. I'm sorry, that's kind of where it's dropped off. Looks like there is more, but it didn't get sent up for me. So, yeah, so that's kind of sad. But just looking at that, what do you think about that? I'm glad for those nurses that are able to make their voices heard. And unfortunately, it has come to that. And I've said over and over again on the show that we've had problems with staffing and with security issues. Okay, so this is another sad story. This has come out from the potluck, and this is something that is near and dear to my heart because I was once a CNA. And it says 2/3 of nursing home workers say they struggle to afford basic expenses. This is from the potluck. 2 out of 3 nursing home workers in Minnesota say they struggle to afford their basic needs each month, according to a survey of about 1,450 workers. The union, which represents thousands of nursing home workers, surveyed both union and non-union workers and found nearly half make $20 per hour or less, and 80% make $25 an hour or less. Many survey respondents say that the pay is too low to attract new workers and is contributing to the severe staffing shortages that are burning out workers and harming the state's elderly and disabled residents. This is a certain argument that I've heard before, but I'm going to read it and get into it. So it says, you don't see much young people coming to apply to be a healthcare worker. Why? Because the money that they are paid is not attractive. Said Ligoni Adu, a nursing assistant at Villas at Robbinsdale during a news conference on Wednesday. They prefer to go to McDonald's or Walmart. The union survey results match the State Department of Employment and Economic Development's occupational data, which show nursing assistants and other healthcare support workers earn a median wage of around $20 an hour. And so, as you can see, that is a problem because, as noted previously in the other articles, who would want to go work in for $20 an hour knowing that you give a hit, slap, stab, spit on? Let's think about that. And then during COVID, where was the hazard pay? Most nurses didn't get hazard pay. The union released the survey results ahead of the second meeting on Thursday of the state's Nursing Home Workforce Standards Board. The board is one of the most powerful labor standards boards in the country with the authority to set minimum wages and benefits. The board is made up of 3 government representatives, 3 industry representatives, and 3 worker representatives. So, according to the press conference, union leaders said that we would push the board to set a minimum wage of $25 an hour for nursing home workers, as well as a retirement plan with dignity and safe staffing plans. So we will see what happens, but that was an interesting article, and I do applaud them for that because it's right. I mean, here in Indiana, I've been seeing signs for McDonald's workers to make $20 an hour, or fast food workers, and we need to keep up with that. You're going to have to keep pace, and yes, I want my hamburger made correctly. I want my food made correctly, but I also want my elders taken care of, right? And so I think we need to look at that. And people need to make a living wage. It is a shame that and I'm not getting on my soapbox here, but I think it's a shame that our federal Minimum wage is still $7.25. And for those people that will argue that that minimum wage should stay there, I want you to try to live off of that and take care of a family on that. Then come talk to me. Okay, so moving on. So this one, okay. Let's talk about this one because this is coming out of Iowa. This is from the Des Moines Register, and this is further fallout from the Nightingale sting operation. And this is another nurse from the Iowa Capital Dispatch put out a story. This is another nurse that has allegedly gotten a fraudulent degree and has lost her license. So it says, for 4 years, an Iowa woman who obtained a fraudulent nursing degree through a Florida diploma mill worked for one of Iowa's largest nursing home companies. The Iowa Board of Nursing recently concluded that there was, quote, substantial evidence that Helena Donway of Cedar Rapids had engaged in fraud in order to procure a license to practice nursing in Iowa. The board voted to revoke Donway's license. According to board records, Donway first submitted an application for licensure as a registered nurse in early 2019, stating that she had received her associate degree in 2017 from MedLife Institute in West Palm Beach, Florida. Her college transcript says she attended MLI for 10 months from February 2017 through December 2017. That right there to me is a red flag. I mean, most associate degree programs are 2 years. Donway passed the National Council licensure examination in March of 2019, and 1 month later, the Indiana Board of Nursing granted her a license. In July 2021, the National Council State Board of Nursing announced an FBI investigation codenamed Operation Nightingale into nursing education programs suspected of selling fake diplomas and transcripts. One of the businesses implicated in the investigation was MLI. MLI and others were alleged to have sold diplomas to have encouraged students to apply for licensure in states thought to exercise a lower level of scrutiny on practitioners, and in states like Iowa that do not limit the number of times a person can take the National Council licensure examination. Okay. So the U.S. Department of Justice eventually prosecuted several individuals, including Johanna Napoleon, who was the owner of MLI and the Palm Beach School of Nursing. It was later determined that multiple Iowa license holders may have participated in the scheme to acquire fraudulent licenses, according to the Iowa board. So it says shortly before she received her Iowa license in 2019, Donway began working as a registered nurse for Care Initiatives of West Des Moines, one of the largest nursing home operators in Iowa, and was still working there as recently as this summer, according to the board. At a recent Board of Nursing hearing, Donway argued that she believed her degree from MLI was legitimate. In revoking her license, the board stated it did not find that claim to be credible and that the wrongdoing in her case was, quote, particularly egregious. The board noted Donway claimed to, quote, have no knowledge that negotiating the rate of tuition, little to no classroom instruction, uncertain class schedules, and faculty and staff using personal email addresses for official communication were all, at minimum, highly unusual for a legitimate educational program. Mm-hmm. The board added that the evidence showed Donway paid for a college transcript, quote, showing she had completed a number of courses at the institution, which, while she freely admitted to having never completed. So she's not the only Iowa nurse who's been implemented. Last year, the board determined a West Des Moines man, if you remember, we talked about him, Ino Masango, who worked for 4 years as an Iowa licensed nurse after purchasing a fraudulent nursing degree from Florida's Siena College of Health. So again, we are just seeing these cases and more fallout as they go along. It's really disheartening and sad to hear this. All right, here's another story that I found kind of more uplifting and more thought-provoking. And I just wanted to bring this up. This is about heat-related illness among farm workers and how nurses can help. This came out in MedPage today. So it says, imagine going to work and dying. That's what's happened to one agricultural worker during the summer of 23, officially the hottest summer on record. Elfian Lopez Garcia, 29, died of heat stroke while working on a farm in Florida in July, explained Rosanna Chicas, PhD RN, assistant professor at the Neil Hodgkin Woodruff School of Nursing at Emory University in Atlanta. Unlike most people, he did not have the option to get out of the extreme heat, she said in a presentation at the American Academy of Nursing 2023 Health Policy Conference. She says, as his core body temperature continued to rise and rise, his organs began to swell, and he pushed himself because every little bit that he picks makes a difference. Every hour he works makes a difference. Chicas has done extensive research on the health-related dangers that farmers face with prolonged heat exposure. She noted that according to 2022 CDC data, about 1,700 people in the U.S. died because of the extreme heat, but cautioned that she thinks is an underestimate. Farm workers have the highest heat-related mortality of any profession, she said, and experience 35 times the risk of heat-related mortality. So she and her colleagues have explored interventions that may reduce the risk of heat-associated illness and death among farm workers. One of the things that the interventions was using a cooling bandana, a cooling vest, and both control devices, both the vest and the bandana, and a control group. The qualitative study showed that the bandana group had the most positive responses to the intervention, while the other methods were met with mixed reviews. But overall, the researchers concluded that, quote, additional insight gained from understanding agricultural workers' experience and the perception of cooling devices highlights the benefits of engaging community members and suggesting the potential of cooling interventions to prevent heat-related illness. So I want to say congratulations to these nurses for what they're doing. I think this is great, and this is something that's needed. And when you think about all the deaths that we had, like with the delivery worker that died because of the extreme heat and all those things, nurses, you can make a difference with your research and providing solutions. So I congratulate those nurses. And I thank them for what they're doing and the education that they're providing and the service they're providing to the community. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, these are two cases, legal cases, that I think that we need to pay attention to. And I always include legal cases in here because I want nurses to hear what could possibly happen when you don't do the right thing and you don't follow through with what you're supposed to do. Okay, so here we go. All right, home care nurse charged with fraud and tampering with medical records. This is back in Iowa. I don't know what's happening, but this is back in Iowa. So it says an Iowa home care nurse is facing a felony criminal charge for allegedly fabricating medical records to falsely claim she provided care for a pediatric patient. State records indicate Michelle Hayes, a 48-year-old registered nurse from Moravia, has been charged with fraudulent practices in the second degree and tampering with records. The offenses are alleged to have occurred in Alpenoose County in 2021 when Hayes worked for Iowa Home Care, a West Des Moines company. According to Iowa Home Care, Hayes worked for the company from April of 2015 to December 2021. State records indicate that in January 2022, she began working for Southern Iowa Mental Health Care Center, where she remained until July of this year when she was fired. According to state records, the center paid Hayes $28 an hour to conduct initial patient assessments, determine patients' required level of care, and administer medications. Shortly after she was hired in 2022, Hayes allegedly informed the center the Iowa Board of Nursing was considering charges against her related to her work for Iowa Home Care. The center allegedly informed Hayes that she could continue in her position, but that if the board suspended her license, the center would have no choice but to terminate her employment. In August of 2022, the licensing board charged Hayes with falsifying medical records related to a pediatric patient of Iowa Home Care. Hayes was ordered to pay a $500 fine and complete additional educational training in professional ethics and nurse advocacy, but she continued to work for the Southern Iowa Mental Health Center. On June of 22 of this year, Hayes allegedly informed the center that there is a warrant out for her arrest due to the allegations that she falsified medical records and committed fraud while working for the Iowa Home Care. So here's the issue, and I think what a lot of people don't understand. The State Board of Nursing will issue their fines and they'll do their ruling. But if you defrauded the government by putting in billing that you weren't supposed to get paid for, then the government comes in and they do an investigation, and that can result in criminal charges to being brought. So I've seen it happen in other cases. And so this is why it's important to know what you're doing, because if you get caught doing these types of things, you will ultimately probably get criminally charged. So according to this, it says that after she was charged, the center allegedly told her to turn herself in and work toward a resolution of the criminal charges. The charges were based on allegations that from February 2021 through December 2021, Hayes had fabricated 24 entries in her timesheets, falsely claiming to have provided 148 hours of service to a Medicaid dependent patient at a cost of $7,364. Prosecutors also allege Hayes created false medical charts in an effort to back up her claims for having provided the services. So Hayes then pleaded not guilty to the criminal charges and continued to work for Southern Iowa Mental Health Center. On July 3rd, however, she received a letter from DHHS informing her that due to a credible allegation of fraud, she was suspended from collecting payment for any Medicare or Medicaid funded services. So the center had no choice, then they had to fire her because she was no longer eligible to perform the duties required of her. Hayes applied for unemployment and subsequently collected about $3,500 in benefit payments. However, an administrative law judge recently ruled that because Hayes' license had been suspended, she was not entitled to those benefits. The judge ordered then her to repay the $3,500 she already collected. So you can see how all these pieces are just, yes, protect your license is all I have to say. So now the criminal charges against Hayes are still pending, and with a pre-trial conference in November. So, but here's the issue. The Board of Nursing then indicated that Hayes' license to practice in Iowa had never been suspended, and that by March of 2023, she had successfully completed the education requirements that were imposed in 2022 and paid her fine. So her license remains in good standing with the state. So if she continued to have her license and her license was not revoked, then should she have to pay back those benefits? So there's a lot that goes into it, and see how tricky things can become. And so that's why I say, do the right thing, protect your license, document appropriately. And this brings me up to another case, and this is, we're starting to see more and more of these cases, or maybe I'm just paying more attention to it, of nurses and now nursing assistants being criminally charged. So this is on USA Today out of Michigan. And it says, woman faces charges after 58-year-old man dies in her care at Michigan nursing home. A woman formerly employed at a Michigan nursing home facility is facing charges in connection to the death of one of its residents that occurred a couple years back. Former certified nursing assistant Jessica Struhar was accused of elderly abuse and the placement of false information on a medical record while she was employed at Medi Lodge of Richmond, over 100 miles from the capital in 2021. So again, it's putting in false information into the medical record, okay? So the 26-year-old was arraigned nearly a week ago for those two charges, each punishable by up to 4 years in prison, according to the Michigan Department of Attorney General. So they said the overwhelming majority of those who provide long-term care in Michigan do so with integrity and respect for their important role. But when there's a serious breach in the responsibility entrusted to them, there are criminal consequences, and my office will seek accountability. Attorney General Dana Nessel wrote in the news release. So here's what they reported. Struhar reportedly ignored standing orders related to 58-year-old man's care during meals repeatedly. Due to the negation of the protocol, the man had a choking incident at the facility, ultimately resulting in the death of the resident, according to a news release. Investigators also discovered medical records regarding the patient's care had been falsified. The falsification was said to have occurred while the man was receiving life-saving medical treatment. So they do have a probable cause hearing scheduled for October 17th. Can I just point out, this is a certified nursing assistant. This is not a nurse. This is a CNA. I'm making this distinction because a lot of CNAs seem to think that they are immune. It won't come back on them. It'll fall back on the facility, the nurse. They won't get caught up. This is example of how you can get caught up. So I'm not exactly sure what happened, but it sounds like the person was giving food that he was not supposed to have, and he choked. And this was not the first time. She was told not to do this. So I don't know all the particulars of this case. But again, this is why I say CNAs, protect your license, your certification, follow the plan of care, don't deviate. Don't make it up because you think you know best. There's a reason for that. All right, so let's move on. So this is one of my happier articles, and I think this is great. And I like this idea, and I'm thinking that as we are looking and facing the nursing shortage, we can learn from other states and what they're doing. And so this is coming out, WTOL. This is from Ohio. And it says Terra State Community College nursing program to expand, offering part-time evening and weekend classes. This is from Fremont, Ohio. The nursing program at Terra State Community College will soon be expanding to offer classes to non-traditional students and those with full-time jobs. The leaders of the school have been told by their local partner hospitals that there's a growing need for new nurses. Ann Sargent, Dean of Liberal Arts, Business, and Allied Health at Terra State Community College, says there's a high need right now. I mean, hospitals are giving bonuses to nurses, and so our local, particularly private hospitals that are close to us, came to us and expressed a huge need, and they're partnering with us on this grant. So they just received a grant to provide this program. So she says we're trying to fill the need. So while they're at capacity in their standard full-time nursing program, the college was recently awarded a $200,000 grant from the Ohio Board of Nursing Nurse Education Grant Program to launch a new part-time nights and weekend cohort. Sargent says they have approximately 74 students in the nursing program, and this would add an additional 48 in the first year and another 48 in the second year. So they're really excited. Along with more equipment, the grant funding will allow for more instructors to be hired as well. Though it will take longer for the part-time nursing students, it makes the classes more accessible to more people and hopefully opens up an option for people who have wanted to be a nurse but could never find the time. Bill Taylor, Vice President for Academic Affairs at Terra State, says this gives a lot of those single parents with young children, working adults with opportunity to come in and participate in the program. I think that's wonderful. And I've always said that we've needed to have an evening program, and we needed to do that because here's the other thing from the other side. If you're faculty and you're working as faculty, and you're a nurse and you're actively in the clinical practice and private practice, in the work sector, it's hard for you to come and take a huge pay cut to work in academia. So by allowing more non-traditional hours, you could get those nurses that may have wanted to make extra cash and, maybe don't want to pick up extra shifts, but now they can teach new nurses. They can do that after their shift and after they're out, so you can be more creative. Weekend intensives. I think that's wonderful. So maybe we can think about that, Indiana. Hello, Ivy Tech. We can think about those types of programs and work on grants and things like that for that. All right. So this is our Nurse Making a Difference program. Segment. And we have an 80-year-old Martinsville nurse who continues to work in healthcare. I thought this was great. This is Martinsville, Virginia, not Indiana, by the way. And it says retirement is a luxury average people choose to cross over into their early 60s. But for one woman in the Commonwealth, retirement papers have yet to be signed after 58 years in healthcare. Mary Willis was born on a farm in Pittsylvania County in 1943. After spending time in the hospital with her father, who suffered an injury in the war, Willis knew she wanted to spend her life serving others as a nurse. She says, when I got to the 11th grade, I just had a calling. I thought to go into nursing. I didn't know how because there were 5 other children, my mother, and of course my father, a bilateral amputee, and he had already passed. But Willis said one guidance counselor made a way, helping her get a scholarship through a local hospital. That opportunity led Willis to work there for 13 years. She then moved on to work at Henry Martinsville Health Department, a job that she's held for 45 years as an RN BSN public health nurse. She says, it's been such a blessing here at the health department and being able to be in the community and help so many people and see just what people need. The needs are tremendous, not only for medical care, but for mental health care. Willis celebrated her 80th birthday October 6, 2023, and is still growing strong in her career. From witnessing diseases taking over patients' bodies to vaccine developments and helping a child walk again after his road to recovery seemed slim, Willis's time as a nurse is one she says she will cherish forever. She says, you don't have to know everything, but you know where to start with the resource and get people on the right track so they can get the help they need. I couldn't help as many people if I didn't work, but then I'm not at work here. I'm usually helping somebody, canning or cooking. So the Southern Area Agency on Aging recognized Willis for her tenure and the assistance that she provides to her entire community. I think that's great. And then just to say, as retirement plan goes, Willis says she thought about it more recently than she had in the past. She says, it seems like when I would go to fill out that retirement application, the Lord would say, not yet. And he's always made a way for me to be here. As long as my mind is as good as it is now, I'll probably be here a few more months. So I want to say congratulations to Willis for being our nurse making a difference. And I aspire to be you one day, happy in what I'm doing. I'm looking forward to it. All right, that's the end of our segments, news segments for today. So we'll close out our news. And I do want to say that we do have a few announcements to make. Very excited. So let's talk about that real quick. We have some things that are coming up. So next, we already talked about the things with the Black Chamber, so we'll get on with that. So coming up next week, sorry about that. I was double checking my calendar. Not next week, but the following week. October the 25th, we have our CPR renewal class coming up. So if anybody is interested in the CPR renewal, we also have our Jumpstart Your Nurse Business class, our workshop. So if you're looking to start your own nurse business, head on over to the NurseSharkAcademy.biz and get registered for that workshop. We have our basic TB validation training class on the 25th. A lot's happening on that day. And then, of course, we are taking applications for our CNA training classes. And so you can also sign up and register for those at our Baxter Professional Services Health-Education.com. And then on Saturday, October the 28th, we do have our full CPR certification class for those who've not had CPR in the past and you need to get certified. Nursing students, if it's getting ready to go to clinicals and that type of thing next semester, now's a good time for you to get into it and get it done, get it taken care of. So we have those classes available to you. Those are all of our classes for today. and all of our announcements. I want to thank you for your time and thank you for tuning in. And I'm going to say bye bye for now and see you next week.